Guys, don't pin your hopes on idiots. Just don't do it. Take my word for it. Don't do it. Hey guys, welcome to the vlog. Producer Millian coming at you. Hope you guys are doing well. Thanks for being here on the vlog with me today. You know, I was planning out these vlog episodes and I started thinking about some of the things about life, and this applies for business, but life too. And one of the things that always comes back to me whenever people ask me for advice, especially, is the phrase, don't pin your hopes on idiots. I'm going to tell you why too. When I was getting into business initially, when I first moved to Las Vegas, it's been about 15 years. So about 15 years ago, I moved here and I was very excited because we were young and didn't have any attachments, didn't have to do anything. And I was like, all right, I'm going to go start my business and let's get this going. And I think a problem when you're young, and even as you get older and into businesses, that you don't really trust yourself. And that was a problem I think I had for a long period of time before I finally started to kind of break out of it. But it was a very expensive and long lesson for me. And a big problem is that believing you can't do it or you can't figure it out. Okay, that's a problem. And what happens is that when you start getting into something that maybe you're not 100% qualified to do, or you don't have the experience, there's a lot of stuff like that. And I'm not saying don't do it. I'm just saying that, you have to really be careful. Is that you turn basically to the first person you can find who like remotely qualifies, who is like the first person that says yes, right? And the truth of the matter is that you would be surprised what you can do when you have to. When you actually have to get something done and when you're really, truly into it, like with your heart, you will figure stuff out. I'm not saying it's easy. I'm not saying it's going to be fast or cheap necessarily, but you can figure stuff out. Another issue that I see in a lot of this and that I can recall in this topic is relying on people that you hope one day will pull it together. And here's a secret. They never do. So I had a business partner with a project that I was on, and this guy was super talented. I mean, and I think that's what initially drew me to wanting to work with him, is he was so talented, amazing voice, an amazing sense of humor. And we were doing a radio project at the time. But the fact of the matter is that his life outside of a couple hours in a studio, his life was a train wreck, man. And it was one of those things where you hear stories of, well, so-and-so, they worked with this person and they went through a lot together and they figured it out. And I figured maybe it'll happen. Maybe this will come together. 5 years of waiting and hoping for something to come together. And guess what? It didn't. Yeah. And here it is like 7 years later after this fact. I mean, it's been a long time. Like 7 years later after leaving that operation, not much has changed. Still a train wreck as best I could tell. And it's one of those cases where I sort of waited and waited and waited for something that would never show up. And looking back, I think to myself, man, what in the world was I thinking? And I guess at the time you think that someone will magically light the bulb one day and say, wow, I can do this. And then they're going to do it. And even when you try to demonstrate it and set up the circumstances, if it's just not there, it's just not there. And you sort of get into this when you expect great things from mediocre people. And I don't mean that ignorant. I really don't. Because I believe everybody has a greatness in them that they can do something with. And I think the big issue is it's not that they can't do it, they don't want to do it. And therein lies the problem, right? So before I wised up to all this, I expected people who didn't have it, as they say, who didn't have it to develop it. And most don't ever do so. And I wish I would have known that at the time. Lesson learned, yeah? So I used to try to convince in this project that I was working on, that same one I was telling you about, I used to try to convince clients that, they had this talent and they had this skill. But the fact of the matter is that if the drive isn't there, nothing's ever going to happen. So, eventually it would sustain for a little bit, and then eventually they'd give up, do something else. And then you, as the business owner, you're back to square one. You have to do it all over again. It's like, great, there's 5 years of my life I ain't getting back. I'm not bitter. No, not at all. So you chalk it up to experience, right? It's experience and basically learning what not to do. And what I'll share with you on this, as far as kind of this whole thing is that be careful who you pursue in projects that you work with. Be careful the company that you keep, And be careful of just being alert to what things people do when they're not at work. Because the truth of the matter is that they say business and personal, now that bleeds over. It really does. You could disagree with me or not, that's cool. But the fact of the matter is that if you got crap going on in your personal life and you have to work in a business, or like in our case with what we did here with like radio and voice work, it's a performance, and it bleeds over into your performance. It really, truly does. And the best advice I can give you for stuff like this is remember that once a knucklehead, always a knucklehead. That rarely ever changes. I will also go so far as when I talk about like your personal life and things bleeding over is show me your closest friends and I'll basically show you the future. I'll show you the next 5 years of your life. Give me your closest 5 friends. And I'm not saying that's good or bad. I'm just saying that you can tell a lot about a direction someone is going by whom they are hanging out with. And when I was in the midst of all this, when I was hanging out and working and trying to run a business with people that just weren't on the same wavelength, I guess, is that when it first came together and we first assembled a group of who we were working with, I was very hopeful at the time. And looking back, I say, show me your friends, I'll show you the next 5 years. Well, the next 5 years of my life was hell on earth. It was miserable. Crashed and burned, as I told you about before. So there's definitely truth to that. The bottom line to all this, I guess I could tell you, is that being an idiot always seems like an endless cycle. I don't know. Bicycle, tricycle, there's usually a bunch of people on there. I don't know, but it's always some kind of cycle that just never, ever, ever, ever ends. That's why I do it myself now. Yeah. All right, guys. So thumbs up if you agree with me, because you do. I'm right on this one. Subscribe and hit that little bell notification icon so you can get all my updates whenever I put these videos out. Visit my website at millian.com, millian.com, especially if you need radio work with my golden radio voice, because I will be happy to help you. And thanks for being here on the vlog, and I'll see you next time. Producer Millian, out. See you soon. Thank you.